Well, next candidate joining us is Tim Johnston, who's standing in Ayre and Michael. And, obviously, you're National Union of Farmers, everyone knows that, and that side of things. So that probably fits in well with your profile of people. Was that too sort of strange to say that? But, is it a farming sort of community background over there?
Yeah, it's a very rural constituency, Paul. I think, for me, looking ahead to next administration, I think it's important that there's somebody in there who understands farming, agriculture, rural economy. I think that's very important. So I think one of the advantages of our system, having mainly independent MHKs, is we want to get a broad range of views in there.
There's been a lot of farmers at one stage, and I suppose you might call one or two there potentially. But what's made you decide to do this, though?
I think that's one of the main reasons, I think, is to make sure there is representation. I think if you're looking ahead into the new administration, I think it's important there is representation there for farming and for the rural economy, and I think that's something I know about, something I hope I can fight the corner for as well. But it's more than that. It's a rural constituency like Ayre and Michael. I think there's a general feeling that sort of Douglas politics tends to sort of suck the life out of things, and it's really important there are people there who are fighting the corner and the issues that are often unique to more rural constituencies, I think. Yeah.
You're going round, I presume you haven't got your manifesto out yet.
No, no.
Yeah, what are you selling yourself on the doorstep with? What's your policies?
Well, I'm quite clear, really. I'm keeping very straightforward. I'm saying that if I'm successful in September, I won't take any ministerial positions on in the next administration.
Oh, the whole 5 years?
No, I won't do that. I think what I'm hearing, what I feel is important, and certainly talking to people on the doorstep, is they're wanting a constituency MHK, someone who's there, who will keep in touch with them, who will inform them. I think that's very important. So that's my starting point. May well get involved in a department if asked to sort of learn about government more and understand the ropes. But I think that's my pledge to the people I'm talking to. That's what I'm going to.
But you bring but you bring a skill set there, don't you? And not to use it if asked to in DEFO or something like that. I mean,
well, like I say, if I get asked to go in a department, I will happily do that and get involved that way. But I wouldn't, over the 5-year period, take any ministerial positions on. Okay. No. And I think it's important that to make sure, as I say, that constituents feel that this, they're the people who put you there in the first place, and I think that I certainly get the impression that people are wanting to have someone there who really is there for them as well. So that's a very important part of why I'm standing. And
away from just the farmers, people, obviously normal people, in your constituency to be potentially. Yeah. What's their issues?
You've heard it a lot, but I'm afraid it's the biggest issue I'm hearing is housing, and it's a complex.
It's incredible. Everyone's now saying that.
It's a complex issue, Paul. I think and I think it's not just about affordable housing for young people, which is in itself a major issue. I think there's a general feeling that the whole housing market, the whole system, needs seriously looking at.
Have you got an answer? I can ask everyone, because is there an answer? I'd love to know.
There's no single answer. Of course, there isn't. But listening to some of the interviews you've been having from other constituencies, it's quite clear that whoever gets into the keys, this is going to be a major issue. And I know the government have got sort of an integral sort of housing plan at the moment, but I think that needs widening out. I think there needs to be a massive debate on what we're wanting to achieve, because you've got the issue of young people trying to get started off. You've got older people who would like to downsize, who can't because there isn't the availability. People paying ridiculous rents who couldn't then afford to be able to put money aside for a deposit to buy a house. So all these things need looking at, and I think government has a responsibility, I think, to look at all of that and make sure, because fundamentally for our future, for our economy, if we can't keep young people here, keep people in the economy, we've got a major problem. So I think it's a real issue.
But are you pro building more houses? I mean, is that the way forward to the supply and demand issue, basically?
I think that's part of it. I think
no one wants houses in their back garden, though.
Well, no, but we just had a census done. I think it's giving us an opportunity to have a much more scientific look at actually what we need and where we need it. So maybe moving away from the sort of let's take another 10 acres of farmland out and build a housing estate, actually look at what we need, where we need it, be more specific, perhaps looking at brownfield sites more, looking at redevelopment, looking at using existing infrastructure in the towns and villages and putting things in place that work. I would much rather see that sort of thing happening. And I think my ethos on that would be they're the sort of things, a government that did that, I would support, and I think that they're sort of important things for me, things like that.
Well, housing is everywhere. Have you got any particular things that affect Ayre and Michael? Erosion, things like that. I don't know.
Well, obviously, erosion has been brought up. I think one of the words I've used previously is sort of connectivity, and I think as an issue for a rural constituency like Ayre and Michael, whether it's waiting for broadband to come through, the state of the roads, I think a lot of concern of the public transport in the north of the island, feeling that communities often feel quite isolated.
Do you feel that?
Yeah,
You're the
very much
ones?
so.
Right.
I think there's a lot of feeling there, and I know
Douglas-centric.
and I think we are the largest geographically constituency. It's a big area, lots of isolated communities, and I think it's really important that people in Ayre and Michael feel part of the island, and I think sometimes they don't, and I think sort of forgotten about. And we've got the Treasury Minister and DI Minister as our MHKs at the moment, and you look at the state of the roads infrastructure, and it is
more money spent in the rural areas.
I think so.
Everyone wants more money spent on their areas. It's a tough
but
one.
I think it's how we deliver it as well. And I think we've obviously had a recent report into DOI, and you don't want to be too nostalgic, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of common sense in the system previously, where it was more local work. People knew what the issues were locally. They knew where the drains were. They knew what the structure of the roads were, and people looked after them and had pride in it. And I think we've lost a lot of that.
So with DOI, are you gunning at Tim Baker here personally? I mean, he is the constituency MHK at the minute.
Well, Mr. Baker will have to defend himself in front of Ayre and Michael. I'm talking about the issues that I'm hearing on the doorstep. People are talking to me, so that's all I can say, really. And
government-wise, are you not a fan of what's happened over the last 5 years? Have you got any things you did like, or particularly other things that aren't going the right way, and the lockdown, of course, as well? So,
well, I think massive curveball COVID, very difficult. I think overall the government have done a pretty good job. I think latterly, the last lockdown, there's sort of question marks, and I think one of the things it brought out was probably an issue that runs through government, is that sort of some of the issues of lack of communication sometimes between departments. I think, and that's
silo mentality.
That's a big issue. Yeah, it is, and I think that there's definitely opportunity for government to do a lot more there.
You're going as an independent, I keep saying to everyone, you're one voice, and everyone has something they're standing for, but it's hard to get that traction, isn't it? Unless you... It
is. I mean, and that's why on the doorstep I'm saying, look, I'm here to be a constituency MHK, because I can't promise more than that. You can't as an independent, but what you can look to do is look to others with similar views and look to work with them. And I think, going back to the housing issue, I think that's probably an issue that we will be able to work with others on and make sure that things happen. And that's what you have to do and try and do. But at the same time, you have to be there and accountable to your constituents.
Accountability, communication. I'm hearing this again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things that can be done better.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have to take into account, look at the bigger picture. The fundamentals of our economy are generally quite sound, but I think there's a feeling of there's a complacency in government. I think we've seen money wasted often, especially on some of these bigger infrastructure schemes. So I think there's a lot more that can be done better. And one of the things, and I welcome, for example, the recent sort of short-term medium planning that's been brought through by Treasury working with KPMG. But I would ask, why wasn't that done sort of 5 years ago? And that's the sort of stuff we really need. We need a much more joined up, more integrated approach, I think, for the island, a proper roadmap for the island. So, because you have to build in. There's always going to be issues that come along and knock you sideways. I mean, obviously, COVID was massive, but other things always come along. But if you communicate well, and if people understand what you're trying to do, then that builds confidence. And I think that's what government is lacking a great deal of the moment, is people just lacking confidence. And I think it's a responsibility for the next administration to try and bring that back again.
Okay, would this be a full-time job for you?
Yes.
Would you have to let go of all your responsibilities?
Yes, I would have. It would absolutely be a full-time job.
So are you actually farming yourself?
I'm farming now.
Well, how do you do that then? So
you'd
have to keep farming, wouldn't you?
I'm an arable farmer at the moment.
Right.
I would look to rearrange that so that I wouldn't be
full-time on the job.
Full-time on the job, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And your thoughts on Chief Minister?
We're all candidates at the moment, Paul. We just got to get through this election and see who's going to be there. That's all I can say at this stage. I'm not going to be drawn on. I'm not going to be drawn on any names.
Because obviously people do like to hear who you're supporting. They get an idea, because let's face it, the public can't vote for it.
Well, but I think one of the good things that we've had recently is that we've got an extended period after the election to hear more debate from potential candidates, and I think that's really good, and that's very important. Let's hear what they've got to say, and you know, people say, oh, you haven't, as an independent, you haven't got a lot of power. One thing you can do is make sure you choose the right person to be chief minister, and I think that needs proper time. So
very quickly, are you in support of the reopening of the borders? And as we record this, things are moving very fast. Would you have done what we're doing, or would you have been more hesitant or cautious? What?
I think probably I would have done what we're doing now. But because I don't have a crystal ball, it's a really difficult one. But you know, one of the things I'm hearing is maybe a concern that we don't have the day-to-day things in place that, say, in other jurisdictions have, the distancing and the face masks. We've sort of gone all in. So we'll have to wait and see what it means. But at the same time, you know, we've got to try and get life back to normal. We've got to try and get the economy going again. So it's a difficult balance. Yeah.